The purpose of this video is to introduce a high-level overview of the WISE initiative and to facilitate a conversation among the project participants about the direction and the focus of our efforts, and to clarify our action items in the near and longer-term future. The overall goal for our collaborative efforts is to establish a framework and a methodology that helps utilities create value and improve performance. The effectiveness of a utility reflects the value that is created when people interact within the organization to execute business processes that may be enabled by technology. These three principal generators of value, people, processes, and technology, are therefore at the core of our framework and our methodology. For each of these three aspects, there is a range that describes different levels of capabilities. These are maturity models. Maturity models help us assess our current or as-is situation, our current capabilities, and they also help us set up goals for raising the capabilities to the next level of maturity. The overall capability of an organization is reflected in the maturity of its capabilities internally with regards to people, processes, and technology, and overall it is also measured by the impact that the organization has on external parties such as ratepayers, community, and the environment. Therefore, the components of the value creation that were the initial focus for the UAIM project have been expanded to include additional components. In addition to the value creation, the WISE framework also includes the impact on external entities, and it expands the scope of internal aspects such as organizational culture, learning, and change management. This expanded framework is more inclusive, and it provides a more complete map of components and interactions. The details of this framework will not be discussed in this video because our primary target audience are the current participants in the UAIM project, and they are familiar with this framework. The framework provides us with a map, and a methodology provides us with specific steps for improvement. The key point is that the methodology on the right can be applied to any of the components included in the framework shown on the left. During the first 3 years of the UAIM project, we have focused on value creation. More specifically, our efforts started with the focus on business processes. We will first demonstrate how each of the methodology steps were applied to business processes, and later we will discuss how the same methodology can be expanded to other components of the framework. We started with a maturity model for business processes from the CMMI Institute that defined different levels of capabilities for processes. The difference between the levels of maturity was based on where the knowledge resides, for example, if it is in people's heads or if it has been documented, and how the knowledge is used to manage the processes. A maturity model describes a range of capabilities, how well a system could work, and an assessment method can help us find out the actual capabilities of a specific system, and it tells us where it is on the range of the maturity model. We have been using the word system because our approach is based on so-called system thinking. A system is the focus of our investigation. In this case, the word system meant business processes. Therefore, a system model that would explain how a process actually works is a business process model. Engineers have been using system models for years to describe the behavior of our sewers and treatment plants, using models based on mathematical descriptions of hydraulics, kinetics, biology, or chemistry. A hydraulic model could tell us a lot about the flows and the pressures in our network. A business process model can answer a lot of questions about our process. Some of the questions are included in this list: the sequence and path of activities, what decisions have to be made, who makes them, which business units are involved, and what information may be required to perform different activities. The maturity model for processes informs us that developing business process models by itself raises the maturity of our processes, because proper documentation is required for achieving level 3 on the business process model maturity scale. A business process model encapsulates our knowledge about a business process. We can use the models to discuss possible improvements with stakeholders and evaluate different options for improvement. We can design the new to-be process based on the input from different stakeholders. Advanced features of business process modeling include the ability to simulate different improvement designs and scenarios to evaluate them. A great example of using the simulations capability of business process models to design a to-be process was provided by a case study from the city of Grand Rapids. Simulation results demonstrated the impact of the proposed changes to a process and quantified the benefits. Once we have defined our desired to-be system, the next step in the methodology is to prepare a project management plan. The next step of the methodology to execute the improvement plan and implement improvements will require a strategy for managing changes. Change management is included in the focus of our current ongoing research on the UAM project. It'll demand, in addition to the process and technology aspects, that we consider the components of the people column, including workforce and organizational culture. Once the changes have been implemented, we will need to monitor the performance and the impact of the changes. As we can see from the maturity model for business processes, the ability to monitor and manage performance based on quantitative measurements is an advanced capability. Let's imagine for a moment that we are implementing a dashboard to monitor the status of business processes. As shown here, such a dashboard could be organized around different processes. What is shown are the main stages of the CIP process that have been identified and modeled during the collaborative efforts by UAM utility partners in 2019 and 2020. The level of granularity of such dashboards would be adjusted based on a person, user's interest. Each of these processes include many sub-processes, so while this specific dashboard may be informative for an upper-level manager, a similar dashboard could be constructed with much more granularity to focus on just one of the processes, for example, preparing detailed design, and include all the sub-processes that are included in that process of final design. The dashboard for business processes would therefore reflect the hierarchy and granularity of the water sector value model. The same method that was applied to business processes could be applied to other components of the value creation and impact framework. As we can see, the components of the people aspects are included in the framework. In addition to being included in the same framework, they can be addressed using the same system thinking approach and methodology that we used for business processes. While the framework and the methodology are the same, the models and specific methods for these three people aspects would be different. For example, our system is no longer business processes, but these three areas of the people aspects are now our three new systems. 4. We will need to identify the specific models and methods that are applicable to each of these new topics in this or systems in the same way that the models that were used for business processes helped us deal with that system. Let's look at one example: organizational culture, and specifically the maturity models that would apply to that system. Our goal in the next few months on the UAIM project will be to define the characteristics that describe the different levels of capabilities related to organizational culture. The maturity model will define different levels of organizational culture from terrible to wonderful. We will want to accomplish this collaboratively, and we will draw on the experience of the utility partners who are participating in this effort. In addition to describing the maturity model, we will also want to define the method for assessment to determine where on this scale a specific system, in other words, the organizational culture in a specific business unit or organization, could be placed. We will also do the same for the workforce topic. In this case, we are defining the characteristics for workforce for each level of the maturity model that applies to that system, the workforce. Again, a range from unacceptable to great. Change management is normally defined as a process, so the lessons from studying business processes and business process modeling will be very much applicable. However, we will need to make sure and pay special attention that we integrate the two closely related systems, organizational culture and workforce. The decision to break down the people column into three components was made by utilities participating in the UAIM project during the discussions and workshops in the early part of 2020. Let's look into the future and consider how we could examine the status of the systems in the people column within some dashboard that we may construct. It is not unexpected to be intimidated by the complexity of the people topics. Trying to address these challenges for the entire organization would involve many people and require very significant effort. One way to make our job easier is to organize our approach to these three capabilities according to different business processes. We would introduce the changes incrementally by first applying the methodology to one or a few of specific business processes. Each process engages a subset of the organization. We could start with a process that has high impact and includes a few business units and people and that may have larger appetite for and readiness for change. So this approach is scalable and it allows the utilities participating in the WISE initiative to learn from their own experiences and from each other. This same approach is applicable also to technology. The information included here is from the draft documents produced by the ongoing work on the Water Research Foundation Project 5039 on smart utilities and intelligent water systems, where I'm serving as the co-principal investigator. The proposed framework for technology on this project includes 4 layers, each representing a different category of capabilities. The 4 layers of the technology stack represent an organization's capability to sense and observe data, to collect data and structure it properly, to provide analytical capabilities, and to provide information that is required for decision support. At each of these layers, different models would apply to describe the maturity, the system model, and would have a different assessment method. The technology stack is already included in the WISE framework. The same methodology is applicable, and of course the specific models and methods would have to be identified for each of the 4 layers. This is a mock-up of an integrated dashboard that we may construct in the future based on our research. It is organized around business processes, and it includes assessments based on maturity models. Typically, when the term dashboard is used in terms of decision support, one thinks of reports that present information that helps a manager monitor key performance indicator. An example of a dashboard to track KPIs is shown on the right. To explain how our proposed dashboard is different, let's use a car as an example. For this example, a car rather than an organization will be our focus. That will be our system. We can identify 3 types of information that may provide decision support regarding a car. The requirements for decision support regarding a car would depend on the role of the user. The driver, the mechanic, and the car designer may require very different types of information and knowledge. Each of the roles will require 2 types of knowledge about the system, the car, and also about their own interactions with the system, whether it's designing, maintenance, or driving. The driver interacts with the car through the control elements, for example, pressing the gas pedal or the brake, turning the steering wheel, controlling the volume on the car radio. The driver only needs to know how the car will respond to his actions. To go faster, the driver does not need to know about internal combustion. The driver very seldom uses documentation, for example manuals, and relies on the model that is embedded in his brain. The mechanic relies on detailed information about a car that already exists. This documentation describes the car components and explains how they all interact and work together. The designer needs to develop documentation for a car that does not yet exist. This documentation will need to include additional levels of sophistication compared to the documentation that is used by the mechanic, such as engineering calculations. The designer will need to predict how the car will function before it has been produced, and perhaps even how much it will cost to produce it. A traditional performance monitoring dashboard helps managers monitor performance, identify issues, and make a certain range of decisions that do not require an understanding of the underlying causes behind the changes in the performance indicators. Our proposed dashboard is linked to models that describe the as-is systems in detail, including system models and maturity models. These models also facilitate the redesign of our strategies related to people, processes, or technology. An advantage of the dashboard we are proposing is scalability. We can start with a specific process and identify the opportunity for improvement. In this case, it seems like investment in improving change management processes and practices may make sense. On another process, we may notice that decision support is the weak link. Further analysis into the process models may show us that some decisions may require information from different IT systems, and an examination of the technology stack may reveal that better system integration may improve the quality of information that is provided to decision makers. The dashboard may look nice, but it might be also a little bit confusing, so let's show how this dashboard connects to the framework. Our initial short-term focus during the next few months will not include a detailed examination of external impact. These very important aspects and challenges will be addressed in the future. Utility partners are engaged in ongoing collaboration and in some cases working independently to develop new business process models. We have adopted standards for maturity models and for system modeling of business processes so that the models can easily be shared, and our knowledge base now includes a few case studies. Utility partners are currently collaborating to define a maturity model and assessment methods for workforce. And we are doing the same for organizational culture. We are also working on the third aspect of the people column and collaborating on maturity models and assessment methods for change management. We are also working on the third aspect of the people column and collaborating on maturity models and assessment methods for change management. Our mock-up of the dashboard shows that we want to go beyond just showing the status of performance indicators. Although this is certainly very useful, our main goal is to improve. We also want to know the underlying mechanisms that are impacting our performance so that we can understand what needs to be fixed. And we also want to have access to knowledge that allows us to redesign our systems, methods, and processes. Technology is not currently a significant part of our effort. However, we're aware that advances in technology offer great new capabilities, and once integrated into the full value creation framework, technology will enable opportunities for improvement. Our framework allows us to integrate technology in a holistic way and consider the important interactions with people, processes, organizational culture, and governance. Although some of the concepts that were presented may be new or advanced, it is important to keep in mind that this is applied, collaborative research that is directly supported by utility partners, conducted with strong engagement by their staff and management. This ensures that the focus remains on issues and aspects that can deliver tangible and practical results and improvements to them.